would then be included in the infrastructure bill. Drinking water and clean water revolving loans, which would again go through the state. We talked about this a bit over the weekend, on Friday with Larry and Chris, that if we were to be successful in going after that money, that doesn't necessarily benefit us because the state would then determine the percentages of loan versus grant, and that wouldn't necessarily change if they got $1 billion more. They might just be able to do more projects. So I think we need to be careful of how we're going to go after money that's going to benefit the sewer project, directly or indirectly, given the state's involvement in it. And then, again, putting together summaries of the projects, matching them up where the biggest opportunities are in line with they can go. We would then work on the applications. They would review them and provide sort of coaching in terms of how we can best make our case down there. And obviously, all of this would be done in close coordination with Blumenthal and Murphy and Joe Cordy-Dawson here today.
Thanks, Chris. I mean, I think there are other sources of revenue. I mean, I've been on calls where they can jump in the past, and they've always made the point, for example, that there's a lot of money in the traditional normal budget, right, which is approaching or maybe will exceed $6 billion. One of those words. This year, congressmen and senators have reactivated the earmarks concept, where they each get some money to give out to municipalities or others in their district, which had existed. It was eliminated because it was deemed to be wasteful, and it's now back.
Right, and we've amended that a couple of times, and we'll continue to. Yep. So no, last year doesn't mean no forever. We're going to continue to advocate for those. Those are smaller dollar amounts. I think 40 people say between $1.5 and $3 million typically. So we'll continue to go after the existing stuff.
And the other thing is the city has half of its American Rescue Plan money available next year. They're getting a total of 21. Right, I thought it was 26 because
they did 14 until the other.
Well, I think my understanding is that counties were allocated money because Connecticut doesn't really have counties. They divided up that amount. So Norwich's total is like 26 million, of which 13 roughly is unallocated and won't be until next year. And then I think, you guys know this better than me, $3-4 million has not yet been allocated from the current round.
Almost $4 million from this current round.
Yeah, so that's $17 million there that we could potentially tap. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of money out there, and I think we have to be realistic, and we also have to recognize that the state is going to get money, and the state is going to be doing things. So, I'm not sure that we want to necessarily do something that the state would otherwise finance. I was chatting with Devin at one point recently, and the idea, for example, of reconverting the school buses and city vehicles to electric-powered vehicles is something that might be good for NBU because it would increase demand, and it's, municipal or municipal-related transportation vehicles as opposed to, my car or your car. But my guess would be, I have no idea, but my guess would be that the federal government, the state government, may or may not do that, but if they do it, they're going to push it statewide. And so if we were to do Norwich's school buses, and the state did the school buses for every other community in Connecticut, that would not be an efficient thing to do. So but it's hard to tell at this point. I mean, I think we have to look at all the options.
Right, and there's a ton of money, and the list of projects that we've got is expensive, so hopefully we can match them up to the greatest extent possible.
Yeah, and as we put together that list, I mean, one other thing I would say, I think, is that, this is the Economic Development Subcommittee. The number one objective on NPU's strategic plan merely going to cover capital costs, but are going to generate revenue. If they generate revenue, it's a twofer. You know, we not only get the project done, but we generate revenue for NPU, which can be used for capital projects. And we generate revenue for the city from the 10% pilot payment that the city can use for things. So, I mean, I think that, and I think this could be once in a lifetime project, but, well, it might be once in my lifetime. So, I mean, I think that's another thing, and we have a list of projects here, I guess, but, I mean, that's something I think that we ought to expand the list, at least for now, to talk about things that specifically generate revenue, because I think that's an important objective.
So Bob, my thought was that we could go through in regular session the 12 projects we have, just so everybody has a better understanding of what those are.
Yeah.
And then go into executive session, and then we'll talk about other business opportunities that may be sensitive to competitors.
Sounds good to me.
So,
just before we do that, Bill or Devin, do you have, or Sean, do you have any comments you want to make or observations?
Yeah, well, I'll go first, Sean, if you don't mind. So what I did is I kind of looked at the projects that you listed in terms of protecting public health and as the number one priority, and then others maybe, environmentally protected programs, and also ones that were economically would benefit us. So that's kind of how I broke it down into those three categories. But I think that, we should always look at what's going to protect the public health first. Mm-hmm. And that's why I thought, like, maybe, replacing the lead-based pipes would be a very good project for us in the long run. And others, and at the end of the day, the sewer upgrade project will also protect human health as well as the benefit for the environmental protection. But one question I have, like, for example, the hydropower portion of the grant and loans or the funding, would we be able to look at long-term maintenance, for example, to the green?
Yeah. So Eric's prepared to talk about that because when he goes into it, you're going to find that we have found some things on that dam this year that we have not experienced in a historical my career.
Right. And if it's protect public health, then and then the other thing, could it be used like the purchase if the dam in Scotland came up for sale? We could generate revenue.
That's an executive session. Oh, okay, sorry about that.
Sean,
but Bill, when we put this list together, reliability, sustainability, and cost, all were impacted. A lot of these projects, whether we do them through this funding, have to be done regardless. So, once again, if we can bring in funding to help these out, it's saving ratepayers down the road for future investments.
and we just can't take on too much though, too, either, right? I mean,
We have there's a capacity, dollars, and people, right? Now, not to say that we can't strategically add staff.
Right.
We could actually raise rates, right, to do more things. But, that's got to be very carefully planned out.
Agreed. Although I would think that if we have to add staff or add consultants or whatever to do an approved project, cost of staff would probably be covered in the grant. No?
Short term, yes.
Yeah.
Construction maybe, not long term operation.
Yes.
And if it's something that gives an immediate payback, fine. If it's something that needs to be marketed and grown, you might not see a profit return on investment for many years, even if the capital costs are covered. So that's something that we're going to need some help from Nevin and other consultants and internal staff to make sure we're doing things properly and understand all the ramifications and the risks of what we're doing.
And Larry, if any drinking water projects, we have to go to the Department of Public Health in terms of funding of loans or grants?
No, we do not. You can do it directly with EPA or what?
Yeah, any other funds available. I mean, clean water funds, they love to give money away. They actually, you get pressured, believe it or not, from DPH to use their money.
So as I understand it, the lead pipe problem in Norwich is not our lead pipe it's not in the transmission, if you call it that. It's in the property line to, kitchen sink.
Yeah, and there's ownership from the main to the curb stop, and the curb stop is what we call the customer side up to their house. We have over 12,000 lines. We still have a few thousand that need to be verified.
Yep.
Truly as to what they are. And then that's part of the problem. By the end of 24, you have to have every single piece of pipe and material list, what it is, what galvanized is now coming on the list, as opposed to it was just a lead line. It's like galvanized goosenecks, which are just as problematic. But by the end of 24, a complete list and a plan to replace.
All right, so even the personal pipes,
DPH, they're looking at funding up to the meter, which would be used from the curb stop to the meter is what we consider private property. If there's a leak in that, you go fix it, you can charge them, or they can get a plumber to go fix it.
Yeah.
But if that chunk is lead, DPH is considering funding from the main to the curb stop to the meter, not in the house.
We would tool with apply for that money.
Yes.
And if we don't apply for it, we may be on the hook without applying for it.
Yes, correct. Yes.
that's an easy decision.
That's an easy decision. Yes, sir, we'll apply. But this is all being driven by Flint, Michigan, and this is something that everything we've heard about funding, lead and copper, or lead is one of the highest priorities for the federal government because.
But there are multiple sources to get funding.
So another thing is WIFIA, which is typically no grant portion. That's why we haven't gone down that path. And very large, expensive projects where that kind of fits in. And if if the state was not going to fund our water sewer plant upgrade, that would be a great place to go for low interest bonding for a large sum. But we could also pay cash. We could, if we find some other funding source, we could do whatever we want. But these sources typically are very beneficial to a municipal.
So I guess my question is, if we got money somewhere from government for pipes owned by individual homeowners, would that simply be a grant? Would it be a loan? Would it be a split? And then what would happen in cases where people have their own well and their own septic system and therefore not part of NPU's water?
Our estimate was based on the number of homes that are in not future homes. If they were, our estimate is the $6 million is based on the number of lead service lines that we expected need to be replaced. Okay. We know we have a very good sample case of it's copper. We know homes of a certain age. There's no reason to even go into those neighborhoods.
Okay.
That number was based off of our data that we used when we had all the water meters replaced, as well as the data from service cards from 20, 30, 40 years ago. So you're really looking at a house construction range and lower than that, like 85 and above, they weren't using lead and all that stuff. So that's what it's based on. They have not said what a grant loan percentage would be at this point in time. They honestly don't know. DPH is more giving of money than the water fund side, which is set by state statute. DPH can't change those grant/loan percentages. It all depends on basically what they said, what you're asking for, and how many people are asking.
I mean, presumably you're going to be increasing the value of the house. I mean, a house.
I would think so. Yeah,
more than a house with lead pipe.
Yeah. So, we get routine calls too, people wanting their water tested for lead and all that stuff. Whether they see these notifications go around, they get nervous.
But it would only be for public. Houses served by water, not private.
Yes, public water, period, current customers, yes.
Then you can get lead-based solders inside the dwelling itself, and still,
Yeah, it's basically a scratch test that the plumber can do on that side of the meter, and you can send a letter. You suspect of lead pipe, unfortunately, that is your
this
responsibility.
won't be replacing people's plumbing.
No, this is really foundation to the roof.
And many houses still, there are lead pipes inside, under the sink where it was a lot more easier to bend a piece of lead than it was to, solder and copper to get it right.
But what drinking water quality, when it goes into the system, is pH is fine, low alkaline.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yep,
low sodium.
I understand. Yeah, our pHs are really that conductive to like the lead breaking down and all that stuff, which is a good thing.
And we have additives that we add for anti-corrosion as well. So, and we do, I think it's every 3 years, Larry, our lead and copper sampling.
Absolutely.
And we have met all the requirements for the system for lead and copper. When you look at what happened in Flint, they had very acidic water that when they switched supplies, it didn't manage the corrosion, right? If they would have done that with a correctly, it wouldn't have been an issue.
And just so I can go back to, I'm not sure I understood you. We would be targeting NTU water customers as opposed to people with wells, or even, what's the street that we just, didn't deal with? Yeah, countryside. I mean, if there are others like that, they would not be included, right?
They have to be connected to mobile. There's mobile home communities that are not on our wells, that are in our service territory. They're on their own. Yep. They have the opportunity to apply.
Right. All right, great. All right, Sean, I'm sorry, we got carried away with one of the topics. Do you have any comments or questions or?
Yeah, well, I'm just kind of, I'm absorbent in this one. I do think whatever we do, that, we do look to have some type of sustainability return on the investment, after short term. So I guess, whatever direction we go with your project, as I'm listening to you guys, just, we'll get the funds for it for the short term. We can actually hire staff and have capacity. I'm all fine with that. I think it's just the mid and long term, the solution would be for where it should go and however we use the funds. I'm totally on board with it. And a little bit of the conversation kind of cut out on me in regards to like lead pipes, water, and all that stuff. I didn't catch the beginning of that part on how we got there. That's all. Did I miss you?
Yeah, he's cutting in a little bit.
He's cutting in a little bit. Yeah, that's on his end, I think. You're cutting in just a little bit, cutting in and out a little bit on your audio. I don't know if you're on a vehicle.
Oh, yeah. I was just saying that. Yeah, my internet's a little shabby right now. I was just saying that I missed the part where how we got to the lead and the water and things like that. But I was just saying that I'm all fine whatever project that we choose, whatever direction we go with the funds. Just as long as we can start to figure out a return on the investment, beyond the short term and how we're going to carry it forward, then I'm all for it, in regards to seeing new generation of whether it's hydrogen or whatever project that we choose to do or comes to us from the state and Joe Courtney's office and working with those, particular individuals. I'm all for it. I just was just saying I missed the part where I didn't know.
Yeah, I think just Sean, just quickly. I mean, I think the focus on lead pipes is residential pipes, not our main lines. But
yeah.
Okay.
That's still lead for people who are using them, and the water is coming through them. So
it's the service line from the mains up to the house. It's EPA mandate stemming from the Flint, Michigan issues. So regulatory wise, we don't need to do it now, but the likelihood is in the very near term, it will be. You know, and so let's be prepared in advance.
Well, I think in part because of Flint, I think something like that has significant public support. I mean, I don't think that we ought to just be doing the polls, see what the public wants. We need to think about these things and know the details and make sort of an informed judgment. But I also think it is important to have public support. And, I mean, I think that's something that concerns people. So, I mean, I think it's probably an idea. Yep.
Once that program is kind of identified, then that's when we have to go and do a serious public relations outreach. And I can't make you change your pipe. Yes. I can't change your house. It's just, it has to be a cooperative effort. And much like countryside, where I just signed all the agreements today, but like Maryland's and managing the countryside thing, you need buy-in for everybody before you go and do it in their house.
I mean, traditionally, like when we extended gas, or when we extend water, for example, we charge the homeowners for it. I don't know if we're going to be able to charge or should charge anybody in this instance, but I'm not sure that affluent people in single single-family houses should be getting a lot of federal funds to change the pipes in their own yard. At least, I mean, the system is one thing, 100% payment is another, I think.
No, that's the hard part, because we really can't force them to change out that stuff on private property, nor do we have the right to go change it on private property. We can certainly inform them and let them know this is, even if you're getting 80-20, whatever the percentage that the government finally decides they're gonna give you, that's probably the cheapest they're gonna be from at that point in time. Why that contractor's out there working on that street to replace that line.
But, I mean,
It's a hard sell, a lot of people who look at it across that.
look, the whole vaccination thing, I mean, you get free shots, people would not go. So, I don't know.
But if you look to the right of Larry, you see Barry. Barry owns it to the meter. He cannot let anybody else own what's on the property, just per code and, federal legislation. So, and it's historically been sewer and water at the property line. That's the difference. Barry's got to worry about safety right to the meter, and he still has to worry about his product inside the meter or inside the house.
All right. Do we have a plan, we got a list here, we're gonna do some other stuff in executive session. Do we have a plan to talk to Susan Lent so they can dump at some point, maybe at the next meeting?
Absolutely. We invite her today.
She's on her way to Las Vegas, but always happy to sit in our conference call.
All right. I mean, because I think, I think it's probably ill-advised for us to look at all of the projects and say, let's do A, B, and C. I mean, I think we need to have a conversation with her. She's the expert.
And I talked to her, and we set up this path that we're gonna review the project, the most pressing, highest priority. And she's happy to sit and listen to an explanation or description of the mall.
Okay, well, maybe, if possible, maybe we can set that up for next meeting, which would be, what, 2 weeks, is that right?
Right, and what we can do is we can contact her, find out her availability. Michelle can contact you, find out yours, make sure we get a match.
Yes.
And then we'll set the meeting for, and that's in a step. But let's make sure, so let's not set the meeting today.
Yeah, that's a good.
Let's find out what would be an opportune time.
I mean, I'm available, Bill's available, I expect that Sean, you're fairly flexible as well. I mean, I don't think we want to say 2 o'clock on every other Monday, and you're available, great, and if you're not, we'll just do it without you. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. All right, great. Anything else on, the list of infrastructure projects for public session, or do you want to go into executive?
So I think on this we go through a regular session, you can do what you want.
Well, why don't you do that?
Okay. All right, so Larry, why don't you kick it off, and some of these are gonna be very familiar to the board, and some are not, but just at a high level, that's what those projects are.
Like I said, wastewater treatment plant upgrade, I think the board is very familiar with this project. It's not only a liability issue, but also an opportunity for municipalities to take in customers, larger customers at Norwich developments, or other municipalities who may or may not want to tie in as far as driving revenue. That project right now is well past its 60% design phase, and we're on track to submit to the state by the end of this year for approval of it. And that number does include the other projects in the long-term control plan, wet weather drain and the upgraded Bordello pump station, which would stop 90% of our outflows to the river for sure. And that's a huge regional benefit for us, health and safety, for using the Shutucket and Thames River.
I certainly want to compliment you guys for doing that, because it is an outstanding job and well on its way.
And the only thing that we have concern about this, and it's the problem everybody's gonna have, is I contacted Jen Perry and said, boy, it'd be great, what do you think the grant percentage is gonna be? They're kind of limited by statute, so unless something is written as an above and beyond, it just means more people get to do work.
But the good news with, if there's that much funding out there, they have historically kind of beat you down. If you said you could get 30%, you never really got that 30%. We, 10 years ago, went from, we thought 28, all the way back down to 20. 8% is $8 million, and that's a lot of money as far as City of Norwich is concerned. So hopefully that when they review the project and they start looking at what is or isn't eligible, they look at it through a different lens and actually give you every dime that you should be getting. That's what we're hoping.
it's such an important project regionally, and it just doesn't affect Norwich Harbor. It affects the whole thing, river, all down town, so.
Yes. Yeah, they want this just as much as we do. There is a lot of support there. We just need the right regulators to work with us and help us.
Good job.
Yeah. It's the river quality and Preston Sprague, Boston, Franklin, Ledyard,
All the way down to the south. Groton Norwich Interconnect, this was absolutely driven by DPH. The project will be, I think it was outfitted, but be constructed in spring. They didn't want to go on the bridge in winter. We just simply have to reimburse for our portion that's on the Preston side of that. It was not DPH funded to begin with by Groton Utilities, so we can't actually apply for DPH funding on that. We have to come up with
Are there upgrades to the bridge that need to be done?
not that we're aware of.
No, there's just simply a bridge, there's plenty of capacity hanging on the utility off of it. There's just a pretty good chunk that's on the Preston/North side of that bridge.
So how do you insulate that pipe?
No, it's actually, you get the pipe pre-insulated, and then when you get the joints to get wrapped and be wrapped with insulation.
And weren't they talking about going under the river, drilling?
That was from the Montville side, they did that, a bunch of years ago, they did
Yeah,
it.
you know, to feed the casino, the line from Ledyard to, the casino is under the river.
It is.
They wouldn't let them hang it on that bridge.
But this would give us another, if we had another water main, right, we'd have two points of, never mind our well or stone, we'd have 2 points of contact to bring water in. So it is absolutely a regional benefit, 100%.
Yeah, we've attempted, on this one, it's a perfect dollar amount and truck size and regional project for earmarks. We've taken 2 swipes at this one, and if there's another opportunity before this actually gets built, we'll try it again. And it may final cuts on both. Right. Whatever that project looks like, right? I mean, that's what you're telling us, right?
Lead and copper service, I think we already talked about that one. Sewer force main replacement project, as you said, we had a presentation the other night. We have some force mains that serve a CSO community that are past their useful life. They end up being bottomless from the grid that's been washed over the last 55 years. So we're in the process of designing a replacement now. Rose Alley force main will be replaced through that plant upgrade, but we still have one left. It's the Shipping Street force main. Has been, and we're not going to be doing really well. It is an important project because those pump stations we're looking at now, serve the entire west side of the city. So, pretty important projects.
Eric is the next on the 34.5.
So the 34.5 ring is a sub-transmission ring that is designed to interconnect our 3 substations. So if you, right now, our 3 substations are really their own individual systems. So, for example, I don't have a means to back up our substations if we lose a piece of the transmission system. So right now, the only thing really connecting those substations is the transmission system, which we don't have. This creates 2 problems. The first is reliability. Like I said, the ability to back up those substations should we have a transmission outage of some kind. The second problem is that it prohibits our ability to add new generation onto our system. So as we look to the future, as we look to expanding distributed generation, whether it's us or other businesses doing it, I'm extremely limited in our system's capacity to hold that generation. So for example, right now, I have 39 megawatts of generation on our system. Right now, our system load average is around 50 megawatts a year. It swings between as low as 38, as high as 58, but on the crux, we're sitting about 50. The challenge I have is because my substations are not interconnected, I can only sustain a certain amount of generation on each substation. In each substation, the load varies throughout the day. So if you take Beacon Hill, Beacon Hill is primarily business load, which is primarily during the day. 10th Street and Dudley are residential load, which are primarily in the evening and morning. Right now, we have 15 megawatts of peak shaving generation through CMAC. If I am running our jet, our 18 megawatt generator, I have to call CMAC and tell them to shut down their 15 megawatts of generation. So I can't sustain both of those things. So in order to increase our capacity to take on more generation, we need to build this sub-transmission ring that interconnect our substations and allow us to move load in and around the city.
Well, right now, can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
The jet's going away at some point in the relatively near future.
Right now, we think it's going away. So there are some technologies that we are looking at, that could allow us to run the jet, longer, but, that's very early on in the conversation. As of right now, after FY '23, the jet will come on.
That's the way we plan that, what Eric's talking about is some recent, in the last couple of weeks, possibility.
Very recent.
And we have no idea what the cost benefit of those would be.
That jet is old, I assume.
Yes, it was like old Rolls-Royce Olympus engine. It was designed in the early 50s. The one we have was built in the late 60s.
Yeah, my father, who worked here, was trained on it in the late 60s, early 70s when it was installed, so it's been there for a long time.
We're in our third gas turbine that I know.
Okay.
So that part.
My question is, if that goes away, does that impact the substation connectivity issue?
Well, yes and no. So it will allow us to support more generation in 10th Street, which is right down the street from here. But it doesn't help me support more generation in, say, the Business Park or out by Dudley Street. So, yes and no. And again, that all comes down to where we want to build the generation, or where the generation gets built versus where my substations are.
So theoretically, you take the jet out, you could throw in 18 megawatts of generation. Theoretically.
In that geographic area, and that's the point. On that geographic area.
Potentially our generation, or just buying more power from Siemens?
No. So any project that we put in that's working for creating power is going to be run through Siemens.
Yeah.
So,
But I mean, we're talking about a new facility. We're not talking about simply saying,
oh, no.
we're buying more load from Siemens.
No. That, if the jet goes away, we could throw a generator right here, 18 megawatts, right in the site. But, if that goes away, Siemens buys more power from Hydro-Quebec, it has no impact.
Yeah. Okay.
What's the price tag, Eric?
So right now, that project is about $10 million over 8 years. So that's the other thing, based on how long it's going to take me to do that. And that's primarily based on funding. Is right now, it's going to take me about 8 years to build that ring out, and about $10 million over that time.
Now, there's a lot of things in the infrastructure package for reliability. This is a perfect reliability. And then you talk about stability, it ties in because you can add generation. So this hits a couple of checkpoints and would be great for facilitating loads, put it pretty much anywhere in our system you put this in.
And specifically green that.
And as we go through all of these things, I mean, we have a short-term and a long-term capital budget at NPU. I mean, it would be helpful, I think, to know with each of the projects, is that included in our long-term capital budget?
That is part of our capital budget.
Yeah.
When we start putting the budget together every year, we go over the long-term capital budget. Is the only thing I think that might not be in here, some of Larry's force main, where we have some significant issues this year.
Yeah, I mean, look, I would much rather have the federal government pay for everything. But, I mean, I think one of the questions we need to think about is whether we have the plan and the capacity to do these projects internally if there's no federal funds available, or if there are better options available for the federal funds. Or are they projects that can't possibly afford? This would be a great Christmas gift to us, and otherwise they're not going to occur.
So I think with the 34.5 range, it's a question of funding. I mean, 10 million, capacity-wise, work-wise, we could contract out some of the, a substantial amount of this work and get it done in the very near future. But as a utility, spending $10 million all in one shot would be risky. So right now, based on that, like I said, we're looking at building this over the next 8 years, But we also have to keep in mind, and that's 8 years where adding generation, which is something we want to do, is difficult.
Yep, okay. And I guess one other, I don't mean it for one, but one other quick question. Chris has mentioned in the past that if we get a big user to move into Business Park North, so first, that we might have to build a substation there, and the substation there would not be cheap. If we do this interconnect, does that solve or mitigate that problem?
It could if we plan accordingly, but right now, based on what our substation can support load-wise, any large 20, 30 megawatt, anchor customer that would come in that business park would require some kind of infrastructure improvement, either to our existing substations or a new substation.
Okay.
So just hypothetically, a warehouse goes in, we can probably serve a 13.8 circuit.
Yep.
If we had a large manufacturer, we may have to bring in a 34.5. If it was an extremely large data center, we'd bring in a substation.
Yep.
That's kind of high level, and and when you're talking about multiple sites and pads, a conglomerate would also maybe cost us to get there. But we can serve relatively quickly a reasonable load. But we just got to keep growing in complexity as a larger customer is engaged.
Okay.
Yeah. Eric, you also talk about Preston River Walk?
Yep. So the next project on the list for electric is build out the Preston River Walk. So based on what we understand today, the project that's going to occur out there, in order to support that, our intention is to build out a 34.5 system out in there to support that load. That load would come back into our 10th Street substation, which does have the capacity to support it, but we would not be able to support it on our, actually what's on that street right now is our oldest 4.8 infrastructure. If you drive down Route 12, you'll probably see that infrastructure is pretty old. So it would be improving the infrastructure, new poles, and new wire, upgrading the 34.5 to support that. That's about a 3-mile run. Right now, forecasted to be about 1.5 miles.
And once again, depending on what they build, and they haven't even acquired the property yet, we might be able to get by with 13.8, we may have to go with 34.5. If it's as large as they're talking about, potentially, 34.5 is probably the way to go.
And then the last project is Greenville Dam. So every year we spend about 100 to 150,000 in O&M to support Greenville Dam. It's an old timber crib dam. If you've driven by it in the last month or two, we sustained some pretty heavy damage as a result of the rainstorms this summer. It's certainly the worst condition I've seen it in the 6 years I've been here. And I think Chris alluded to the 20 or so years, probably the worst condition he's seen. We are doing as much as we can with our O&M budget right now, but at the end of the day, we have not, the last few years, been able to keep up with the maintenance on that dam. And it's, and again, not by nature of our ability to do the work, the contracted work, it's really a financial obligation at the end of the day on how much I can support. That dam is in need of some pretty significant capital improvement, and that's why that's on here for now. So this capital work would allow us to really reset the clock on that dam and get us to the point where our annual maintenance is actually sustaining it rather than falling further and further down.
And in this one, where we were not thinking there would necessarily be money for this type of thing, but Chris dealing with Susan Lett has found there's a lot of hydro money in here. This prolongs the life of our hydros. It it helps keep us a sustainable green generator running. So if there may be some really good opportunities for that.
Is it possible that it would increase our generation capacity?
No, it wouldn't increase our generation capacity, but it would, but that dam supports 3 out of our 4 hydro units. So, if the dam continues to get worse, it'll impact our generation capacity not in a negative way, but it wouldn't increase it by units.
Now, there are some things we can look at, potentially such as better flashboard systems, which we've looked at, our flashboards now are pipes that basically stick out of the dam, and you put nail boards to the pipes, or the rebar. High-tech. It works, but when you get a torpedo, a large log, an ice can comes in, it knocks them all out, and you have to wait till the water comes down to put them all back up to get to that level. There are automated systems or better systems to do it. We've never been able to cost justify it, but this may be a good cost justification, and we'd be able to generate more power longer in the year.
No, that's a good point. That would absolutely impact our generation capacity.
All right, great. And going down the list, we
Very nice.
well, we skipped the gas interconnect.
That's fair.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I didn't want to have, back.
Yeah, I just wanted to show it that.
Yeah, so first one on the list here is, again, Preston Riverwalk. We have high pressure gas on Route 2A, Preston right now, in the vicinity of the Hart's Greenhouse. Not too far from Route 2A, Route 117 intersection. It's about 8,000 feet from, getting to the state hospital property, so a mile and a half or so. That line has plenty of gas. It's at 199 MEOP, which is our maximum operating pressure. 199 is fairly high for distribution pressures. 8,000 feet we get there, need some sort of regulator station at that location. Again, depending on the loads that they're projecting for gas, we can provide that gas, or we can conceivably reduce the pressure at our endpoint now, and give them 60 psi gas, which allows us to call flat, which drive down our initial capital cost. Again, the capacity will all be determined by the load that they give us. And then once we're at the state hospital property, the Covent incinerator plant comes into play. That's another couple thousand feet south on Route 12. That's a large user of energy. That becomes a more realistic possibility.
And customers along the way can also tie in, and there are a few Eversource customers that we have with right to recapture agreements that if we went by their residence, we automatically tie it.
Do you strap the pipe to the bridges on 2A or do you go, drill holes on?
So that would be up to the DOT right now. Those are new, as you probably know. There's new ones. The contingency plan for that is if that permitting becomes a nightmare, if you will, which is a real possibility. We can go up Middle Road and down Harris Fuller and bypass the two bridges. It gives another 4,000 feet, but it's local roads, local permitting. It's a possibility that we've already talked about quite extensively. And the one thing I'll say about this project as well is once we get gas also to the state hospital property, it allows us to have a loop system with Laurel Hill for intermediate pressure, which gives us system resiliency. We're at the one-way feed right now that we have feeding Laurel Hill. It would be ideal to get a two-way feed on that.
Yeah, if I were Putin, I'd wait till the executive session, what the hell. I think these two Preston Riverwalk projects are big deals to try. And I think it gives us the opportunity to sit down and negotiate a larger partnership with them. What that would entail, I have no idea, and I think there's a lot of potential. Maybe not, but who knows?
The second project for me is renewing some of our older pipe on the state highways, Route 12 and Route 32. The work on Route 32 was completed this year, but Route 12 remained. This is cast iron pipe that was put in the 1920s, in some cases a little bit earlier. It's about 4 miles of pipe, which is about 1/3 of what we have remaining, what we call non-state-of-the-art pipe. So getting this project completed would really put a big dent in what we call our DIP program, Distribution Integrity Management Program, which is a risk ranking system of determining which pipes we replace in what order. So this would be a major accomplishment in our DIP program, and the infrastructure bill that Chris alluded to earlier that may be voted upon this week, I'm following that as well, would potentially give us grant funding to municipalities for this exact work. And not just Route 12, it could be other of our non-state-of-the-art pipe.
the nice thing about this one is it includes all paving costs. So this would actually be really beneficial to the city because it could theoretically reduce a lot of their paving costs. DOT, you know, well, on any of these other roads, which are city roads, it would definitely, take care of the paving, which would be a major benefit to the city.
Is there any risk, you know, in terms of the, you know, gas explosion like occurred in Massachusetts a couple of years ago with these older lines? I mean, is that something that we have to worry about?
We're managing that every day.
Okay.
So we have an extremely safe system. And, what happened in Columbia Gas, Barry and I both were at Columbia Gas working on that, was an overpressurization. That could have caused explosions in a brand new system.
Okay.
It's something that, you know, we are we're managing, so we don't have any issues like that. But cast iron breaks easier than plastic, and it's more prone to leaking than plastic. So that's why it's a high priority. Great material in the ground for over 100 years has been, great, but it's at the end of its useful life, and Barry's got much better materials to design gas systems. All right. Back to you, Larry.
Hey, back to me. Water treatment plant, reservoir facility improvements. This is a series of projects that are kind of lumped together, all eligible for clean water funding. It involves rehabbing the gatehouse repairs at both treatment plants. Gates are water 24/7. Materials over time don't like water. They tend to rot and become unstable. The gates, nothing in danger, but the projects that should be looked at. Yannick tank painting, that's the 200-foot outfall. Yannick is pretty high up. That needs to be painted badly, most likely sandblasted. We have some aeration systems in tanks driven by disinfection byproducts. We have 2 tanks we're looking at aeration systems. Those projects have already been approved at Clean Water Fund for, I think, a year out or 2 years out as far as funding. But all important projects, without a shadow of a doubt, but all eligible for Clean Water Funding. The next one, this may have more of an impact than we think. The sewer gravity line and piping Greenville. Not only it gets rid of a constant headache of failing and collapsed pipes. These pipes were, the Greenville is probably the oldest sewer we have. Right now we're lining a section of pipe that's 1886 to 1920. It's a good run, but it's, it's past its useful life, to say the least. But as you do the structural lining, you pipe, you have a brand new pipe, which now stops groundwater coming in. So if your average daily flows are here and they drop down here because you're lining pipes, that's just more capacity available for residents or outside communities looking to tie in. Every gallon out of groundwater is another gallon of sanitary sewer we could treat. Stonington's running into this. Look at the paper. They have 3 plants, 2 in Mystic, in the borough. They're at capacity, but they have some systems in Mystic that are just as old as ours. They start mining those pipes all of a sudden because they have a huge development by Perkins Farm, medical buildings, offices that they can't get permission to build because they don't have capacity at the plants. You can't run into that. There's ways to solve that by maintaining your system. So those type of projects, even though right now it's under O&M, are incredibly beneficial to the municipality as far as revenue. Because last time I checked, the ground doesn't pay to treat the ground. And Deep River Transmission Main Project, it's our main feed for Deep River, 80 years old, plus or minus 30. We've had at least 3 breaks since I've been here, Chris. There's been more. It's stable, but it's something that really should be looked at as sister pipe along a different route as a redundancy for sure. That's our main plan, our main supply water.
And if we put the new tank in, there's a new line from the plant to the tank. We recently redid the 24-inch main that runs behind Walmart. So we started doing some of these risky areas. And this would not take care of the whole thing, but this would be, once again, you find the riskiest areas, and then you tie this in to take care of those issues.
Can I ask sort of a related question that I've always wondered about? We have 4, I think, reservoirs in Norwich. Five Meadow, Fairview.
2 Castle, 1 yeah.
Do they serve, I know they're not operating. Do they serve any purpose? Do we plan maybe someday in 20 years to put in a treatment plant and start using? I don't know.
That's a great question. It's never been looked at. Right now, they're nothing more than recreation.
Yeah,
That's really what they are, the recreation use.
So before your time, Larry, they have been looked at.
They have.
And so most cost-effective effective would be to put in maybe a well, some, you know, we're looking at some areas like by the old washroom, right? Most cost effective because to put a package treatment plant in these, you know, in these smaller reservoirs would be not very cost effective.
Yeah.
But if you put us out in the Wild West right now, where there's been drought conditions and water is gold out there, future generations may need those small, higher priced reservoirs more. We don't want to get rid of them. We want to make sure we have them saved, but we may be able to get more cost-effective water sources if we need it.
I mean, that's kind of my question. I mean, money's fungible, and, if we could sell biometal to the state as a recreation facility, and then use the proceeds to do something different. I mean, I don't know. I just.
That's one of those things where these are zoned as green spaces, it's very hard to put anything in there. And if you're selling it as open space is really, really cheap. You're not gonna get that.
Yeah, great.
You know, we're looking at potentially partnering with Avalonia for a land trust and bond. There's a couple articles on that, which goes to our watershed. That's hundreds of acres being sold for $400,000. Not, you know, it's not like it's prime developable real estate.
All right, great. So I think that's the list. Bill, John, do you have any questions or comments or?
Okay, that's pretty handle on, well, they're all important, but, I'm not mind that right now, so, I'm good.
Yeah. Sean, any? We're done. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Oh,
Can you
I
hear
was
me?
asking, do you have any questions or any?
Oh, no questions for me at this time.
All right. I mean, I do think at some point, we're gonna have to make a decision on what federal money we're gonna chase and what federal money we're not gonna chase. And
Okay.
one of the considerations is gonna have to be, is it already in our capital plan or is it not in our capital plan? And another consideration is gonna be, are there regular, grant programs out there that might otherwise cover it? I mean, it was mentioned that, for the water treatment plant, reservoir and facility improvements, that there's clean water funding available potentially for that. So you have to make a judgment, but, if there's other federal or state money available for things, we need to throw that into the mix to determine what makes the most sense for us to do. But I think this is a good list. I agree with you, everybody, that all of these are good projects. I mean, it's not, there's nothing here that's just, well, that's, I mean, they're all important projects.
We're gonna go into executive session.
I think we can go into executive session. Do we have a vote to go, a motion to go into executive session? Bill?
That motion.
Sean, it's up to you.
Okay, I'll jump on the executive session.
Thank you, Sean. All those in favor of executive session, signify by saying aye. It's unanimous.
Right, so Sean, before you get off, you gotta get back on the other, on the executive session.
Do we have a WebEx for that, or do you want me to just call him directly? I've got his cell number.
Oh, I thought we had one. We didn't set one up. I thought it was set up.
No, there should be one.
He does
Is there?
have
I
one.
don't see one.
He just jumped off, so he's probably gonna jump back in, but if you want to just mute me here so I can't hear you.
No, there's two.
Yeah, so when you have
I don't have that invite. Okay, I'll forward it to
I
you.
sent it to you, John. Chris, do you want me in executive session? Oops. Michelle? Hi. I don't know where I'm supposed to be, but I'll just stay here with you. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. It really doesn't matter. This isn't really, you know,